Hey, Good News family. This is Tana Heineman, the host of our Now What podcast. This is where we unpack Sunday's message and we talk about how to practically apply it to our everyday lives. I love that you're here with us, and I love that we get the opportunity to spend more time with our pastors and have them teach us even more what the Word has to say about our everyday lives. We learn from Jesus that one of the best ways to grow is in community together. So join us as we unpack Sunday's message. Hi, Good News family. So glad you're here today. Look at me. I get to be with Queen Mother
Lord
and
Jesus.
her minion.
It's pretty close.
King. No, I can't. Jesus is the king.
Everybody just lives in her kingdom
Yeah,
for sure.
You're just the jester. I don't know what role you play.
I'm grateful to be in your midst, Queen Mother.
Thank you.
He is your.
He's from the
knight
south
in shining
side of
armor.
the kingdom.
Oh, the south side, y'all. Okay, you guys, you get to be on here today with me, and it is the 2-year anniversary of the Now What podcast.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
I'd like to point out.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we've been doing this for 2 years now, and our listeners are continuing to steadily rise. Our viewers on
Thank you.
YouTube.
Thank
So
you,
thanks,
listeners.
guys. It means a lot. And I was thinking about that, reflecting the last couple of years. We've gotten a lot better, I think, over the last couple of years and where we started. But what would you say is the vision behind us having this podcast?
I think it was just trying to add value. You know, sometimes in a message you can't say everything and you can't unpack it. But also I think, a little more personality too. Laugh a little bit, share some stories maybe we can't always share on Sunday, and maybe cover topics we can't always touch on Sunday or go as deep.
Yeah.
Sure.
I just still have in my mind, Carrie DeVries used to say, like, how many of us, we hear a great sermon on a Sunday, and by the time we hit QT, we've already forgotten what the message was. And the hope is that, sometime in your week, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, the podcast drops, and it brings you back to the message from Sunday. And because you love when I say this, I am a devil's advocate. I don't know if the AG thinks that's sinful for me to call myself that, but I don't know a nice way to say it.
I don't know, but there's two devil's advocates here.
At this table.
And I am not a
Are you
friend.
frightened?
I'm not a friend of the devil. So
Sorry, God made me this way. But it's like, when you hear something from the message and I want to go, okay, that sounds great, but tell me how to do that. Or I try to think of it in the mindset of somebody who has not been following Jesus for as long as we have. And like, okay, what do they hear when we say certain things? And that's what I love, is to get a chance to kind of pick your brains as the pastors and like help us understand deeper, help us apply it, and then help us be able to talk about it. Because people talk about the podcast they listen to all the time.
All the time.
If I learn something, like you guys, I listen back to our podcast every week, partly just to critique and make sure we're doing a halfway decent job, but really mostly it's because in the moment I'm kind of concerned about where we're going to go next, and I can't leave a dead space because we don't edit. Contrary to popular belief, we do not edit. And so I often will listen back and be like, oh, wow, that was really profound, or I didn't really realize that you said that, or, whatever. And so I learn something every week as well and encourage. So hopefully you guys do.
I love the podcast because when I preach, I'm naturally a secondary responder.
Okay, yeah.
So
does that mean?
I'm somebody says something and I'm the color commentator toward it, and I feed off of that. So I don't always act the same on stage as naturally I am, because I don't, it's hard for me to pull up things in the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I get creative when so I love these moments, because I think when you add texture and depth and add something that maybe we couldn't communicate on a Sunday.
You sound way smarter here.
Thank you.
No. Just kidding.
Yeah.
But I totally get what you mean too. And then just, there's only so much you can say and get to, and then you're here and you've had a chance to preach it twice, think about it some more, even since Sunday. You always do that and kind of evaluate, what did I say? What would I have said differently, or whatever? And now you come back and talk about it again. We get so much more depth out of the message. So anyways, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to do this podcast, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you for being faithful. 2 years is a long time.
Hey, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's one of
really
my, I
is.
mean, I literally say it. It's a favorite day of the week, because I really want us to not just hear messages. I want us to understand the Bible and live it. So, okay, since I have both of you here, and we're going to go over this message on money with like legacy and generosity and giving. I have a couple of questions for you guys first, so we kind of know you guys a little bit more. Will you really, really briefly, I thought about just saying what your disc letters are, but not everybody knows that. Will you kind of give us a hint at both of your personalities?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll go first. So I am loud. I love people. I am pretty scatterbrained at times. I'm very task driven. So if you see me on a Sunday, Wednesday night in the moment, I am not as friendly. I can walk away from a conversation and just go, I got to go.
Because you've got this list going that you need to
Yeah. But I tend to go like big. My energy level at work is really, really high. And then I like to go home and rest big.
Like you almost have to recover from all of
100%. Yeah. I have to definitely recover. But yeah, I tend to just do things loud and big and then I drain myself and
It's empty.
and sometimes others.
So would you call yourself an introvert or extrovert?
Okay, therein lies that
She's an extrovert.
he says that, but
She's
it's
an
because
extrovert.
he's one of the highest introverts that you'll ever find on multiple tests. But I charge from either being home, which is the classic definition of an extrovert and an introvert, is how they recharge.
So the way I describe her, imagine
Yeah,
you have
about where this is
a
going.
golden retriever and you're trying to get the golden retriever to leave because it's time, but new dogs show up and the tail is wagging. That is Carissa anytime there's an environment with people. So
If we're
that-
laughing,
No, in general.
Okay.
Just she likes to talk. She,
Yeah.
so she's all in
Yeah.
or she's out.
Okay.
And so when she's all in,
Right.
she's in.
Yep.
so
And for as long as something is lasting or she has energy, and then when it's time to go, she's gone.
Okay.
and then I'm like, okay, it's great talking to you. Bye.
And she can be really locked in for like hours. She'll stay with something. Like I can't interrupt her. You know, like if she's working on an email, she can't even be asked something because she's going, I'm writing an email. Like to be able to answer
Well, yeah.
a question throws her off. So, I mean, she is locked in, but it will be for hours until she completes a task.
Okay.
Pretty impressive.
It's wow. Okay. How about you?
I'm really more quiet. I'm loud, but I am really more quiet and introverted.
I would never say you're loud.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
And then,
Maybe an Alabama football game, but that's
He's what I would maybe
extrovert
say a passionate introvert.
okay.
yep.
That's where you'll see his,
Yeah.
I'm driven by
Energy.
cause.
Cause,
And
sure.
I am creative. I didn't really discover this until later in life, but really enjoy creating things. And there's certain things. Carissa swears I'm autistic in some way. Really, honestly, like in the best.
Apologize,
No, like
viewers.
in the best way because there's like memory recall. Like
I
it's
say
weird how
he-
I can pull up. I can hear something and go through my digital file in my mind to remember where I heard the voice in what episode 10 years ago.
There are neurodivergent tendencies, is what we could have said, that he exhibits that the teacher in
So there's a strength
Although-
to every person and situation, and with autism there may be some limitations in some ways, and then strengths in others, and they're really good with math or something like
Recall.
that. Yeah, recall. And so
which is why
She
he'll
just goes-
wake me up and go, you got to hear this. And I'm like,
no, I don't.
yeah,
She's out.
normal people
She's not
don't do
in.
that.
She's out.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it though.
Okay, so then in Financial Peace University, that class, they have you identify yourself as a nerd or a free spirit. Now, maybe you'll say you've always been the same one, or maybe you'll say you've traded places over the years, but are you a nerd or a free spirit? And have you always
We've traded
been?
places. If you look in the dictionary, next to free spirit will be Carissa's face,
Okay,
smiling. And then mine has become the nerd.
okay. Did it used to be the other way around?
Yes.
No.
But mine was because I was uneducated. Just being honest. I did not have practices.
Okay.
So he maybe wasn't a big spender of it and a free spirit with it, but he just,
Right.
it just ran out of the holes in his pockets, to use
right.
what you said on
Yep.
Sunday.
Yeah. It's just, again, if you give me a task, I'm going to be on it. So if you go to the grocery store and you spend 50 cents over what I gave you in the envelope, that is unacceptable. And he would come home with like, oh, well, this was on sale. And I'm like,
But that's
what are we doing? What are we doing? So maybe in that sense, nerdy. No, I think I'm just a stickler. I hate budgets. So I just do.
She's a free
I am a free spirit. I love to spend. If I have it, I'm spending it.
So now you're the nerd and she's the free spirit.
Yeah.
How long did it take, looking at your different personalities, not just your nerd free spirit, but everything we've talked about, how long has it taken, or maybe it hasn't, to get these two personalities to gel?
So I think, our state of affairs kind of, at least financially, when I began to recognize, quote unquote, I was running out of time to think legacy, to put something back for the family in case something happened to me, I begin to recognize something's got to give. I have to make changes. And so that was, because I'm cause driven, that became a major cause for me. And then I began to look at, we're not a highly budgeted, but we are, here's the amount of money that we want to invest, here's the amount of money that we want to save every week. And here's how much of a cushion we want. So those became the driving factor. So anything extra, that's fine. We could spend it. But these are the things we have to hit. So I wasn't a Dave Ramsey fan. I wasn't not a fan. I just knew the way we operated, I had to figure out a way that fit us.
Would you agree?
Yes. And then I soon discovered that I could take my cash envelope money, and if I took some aside from any extra, then I could put it towards my nail.
Confession is good for the soul.
Welcome
So
to
it's
Confessions
still a
with
part of
Tana
the
Yanema.
envelopes.
So that's why sometimes I'll go, hey, can I have $20? And I just put it in my pocket and save it for another time.
I'm like, sure, you can have 20 and I'll take 50.
That's right.
Okay, this is going to be a whole different podcast where we're going to have to
No,
work on
and this is good. And just to let you know, our kids are older. There's more bandwidth and margin and all those kind of
Yeah.
things. So, and here's the thing: is we've learned to live simply. And I've told her, as we get older, and I'd like to be able to reward her because we've been very diligent. And so there are some things that I'd like to be able to bless her because she said no to some things. She's settled with some things. She learned to settle.
Stop
Oh,
it.
yeah. Stop.
So, but anyway, she's learned to settle. And so there are some things that, because we've been diligent and faithful, and it doesn't mean we have all this money, but it just means there's some things I'd like to bless her with.
Yeah, I like that a lot, especially because, as we talked today, and as you and Pastor Isaiah have preached over the last couple of weeks, stewardship with our money, it does cost us something, and it is a discipline that is not common in our culture, and you have to make choices to live differently if you want a different result, and that lends itself here of, we don't all get our nails done, but some of us have different things that we get done or that we do, or whatever.
We have one car.
It's important.
Yeah, for right now.
I actually had that in my thoughts because I really wanted to say that because you said it a couple weeks ago, people get very concerned when you say you have one car. But if you have ever lived either financial peace or a form of it, you understand the conscious choice of it's a choice of why you're driving one car.
And so here's the thing.
goal in
Yes,
mind.
let me just explain. We got $5,000 for my car, which I would have driven that car for another however many years because
tree
I loved
landed
it.
on it.
A tree
landed on it.
Storm.
And so they settled and gave $5,000. I invested that $5,000. So there was, there's a period of time that I want to receive a return on that $5,000. We're coming up on that. I've just learned I want to live for my returns and not just live for a product.
Yep.
And I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not saying we're going to get this huge return, but I do want a return on that money first. And we can make the sacrifices for it
Exactly.
temporarily.
Well, yeah. Okay, practically speaking, too, we work together. That makes it
7
easy.
minutes from here.
7 minutes from here, probably 5 if you're driving, 10 if I am.
We save on insurance and gas, so I
Yep.
can Uber
Car maintenance.
for less.
Even a couple Ubers does not add up to
No.
you know what you're saving.
So when we say that, it's not we're not bragging about it, and we're not like, hey, we need a car. It's like, no, we can buy one. We just choose not to. It just works in this season.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is, as we discussed today, has been part of the lifelong journey for you guys. And it has been for Nate and I, of learning how to tell our money where to go and what matters. And deciding to be kingdom minded with our finances means that sometimes you go without for a while. Sometimes you go out for good in this particular item or whatever it is, because there are bigger things that are more important to us, that we're making a choice to spend our money on. So
So this just jumped in my head. So
I get scared when you say that.
well, so as a kid, because I think some people have a natural inclination to it, and then some people do not, right? So, there's the brownie test or the cookie test that they give
yeah.
to kids.
Yeah.
Whoever can last longer probably will be more successful. I can remember getting cereal that had marshmallows in it.
Heck yeah.
And I would wait for the marshmallows all the way to the end.
Really?
Yes. And so I feel like this fits that, design. So I'm able to go, no, because there's going to be a benefit at the end.
Especially if you ate all the cereal and drank the milk and left those marshmallows till the end.
Yes.
I don't remember what I did yesterday, so I couldn't tell you.
You'd eat the marshmallows and then ask for some of mine.
I probably would, and then
got so much.
expect it.
Yeah.
And then my dad would be like, I just happen to have marshmallows right here.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Go so many different ways with that. Okay, speaking of our parents in childhood, actually something that you said in the message on Sunday was that you grew up with parents who sacrificed for you, but your parents never learned how money worked and how, if handled correctly, money would work for you, much less what God said in his word about money. And I think that is really important that we recognize, first of all, parents don't know everything. And we are just a product of our own upbringings that are also in process. So they didn't do anything intentionally to screw you up.
Nope.
They also didn't know what they didn't know for a while. And then sometimes that you start to learn it, but it seems scary or foreign or I don't know. So then you don't move in those things either. So there's no, this isn't judgment against parents. It's just they did what they knew, and then you got some revelation about, wait a second.
And really it was through the word.
That's what I was just going to ask you.
It was the Bible that began to open my eyes to things, and I would read it, and it first of all, the generosity thing I think was just naturally there. I was so grateful to the Lord, loved giving and blessing and all of that kind of thing. But then it was when I met Carissa, and that created boundaries for me, and I saw how her parents lived. And then I would, read the Bible. And so this whole idea of sowing into people or blessing people, again, it was this idea, well, I see what God's word says. I want to do this. I did not understand money yet. I did not have a budget yet. I did not understand the stewardship principles, but it was a natural lane. I loved it. I love to bless people.
Let me stick in the spiritual side of it, and then we'll go to the more practical, tangible side of it. Because another thing you talked about was that money is like a testing ground for our faith because it is so tangible.
So tangible.
I 1,000% agree with you on that, because we have to have money to live, and there's faith has to be a part of that, and then followed by obedience if we're gonna live God's ways and God's principles, because it takes faith to go, wait a minute. So this is how much money comes in, and I'm supposed to live off only 90% of it because 10% of it goes back to God.
Yeah.
And then if I'm really feeling it and recognize the laws of generosity, and I'm like you of I'm so grateful that God saw fit to let me know him so quickly and save me from myself, that I want to return that with generosity towards him and towards his kids and whatever, that it just drives you. But then you start to learn, wait a second, you're going to bless me when I'm just showing gratitude. And it's not your motivation, but God also just says, see if I won't.
But see, I think, so that's the thing. We're always trying to walk this tightrope, in church. But here's the thing. I honestly began to believe and take God at his word, right? So I believe tithe was this thing that we said, our life and our needs are met by you. Here's our 10% trust that we're giving to you. We really do believe you're going to take care of us.
Yep.
And it may not be exactly how we want, or it may not be right in the moment. He has to walk us through, right? But he would take care of us. But the other was the investment side of, I want to see what God can do with us offerings. And so we would just sow. Yeah. That was her world. That's what she saw. But for me, I was learning.
Yeah. How did you experience that growing up? Or did you watch your parents? How did they live? What were finances like for them?
So they went straight from New York to Zimbabwe, Africa. And in those days, this was 1980 they went. So you didn't raise support. You didn't raise anything. You just went, followed the call. They did have their local church support them, but then that stopped within a couple of months for different reasons. So I think that's all I ever saw was you put yourself out there, you risk it in obedience, and you get the return. And I never saw anything different. And it's not to say that we didn't have seasons where we lived in a makeshift shed that had no front door, and you rolled this canopy down. But I didn't know any different. And then seasons would be where we would live in a small, I guess I would equate it now, very expensive home that was, hey, you can live in this rent free. That's all I ever
So she
saw.
always expected God to show.
Yeah, based on obedience. And, my dad would tell me stories like, I shop at thrift stores in Dallas. And I was like, wow. To provide for you. And I take extra speaking engagements. I mean, he didn't invite us, my brother and I, into the process of what it took. So I think that's a little bit of a weakness as well. But no, I never in my head thought poor, poverty, ever. That was almost like how dare you say that? We're the king's kids. But literally because I grew up watching where he had to intervene, and he just did.
That's good. Let's see.
So in just to tie this in, so, we were in the season early in marriage, first 4 years in marriage, and I had a very difficult time receiving from the Lord. I could serve him and I could give to him, but I had a really difficult time receiving from him, whether spiritually or in the natural world as well. And then, so I would sow.
Because you didn't think you were worthy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And no, I'm always disappointed, all this kind of stuff. So I would sow. No talking to Carissa, just feel like we need to do this.
And I was like, yeah.
Yeah. And then God would give it to her.
Oh.
She would
all
get,
the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold up. That was my idea. That was, my sowing, and she would get it. But the Lord taught me, because you can't receive from me. So there were spiritual things that I was learning. He wanted to bless us, but he had to get to the person who could receive freely. So I know it's one of those weird, things that, people say, but it really was a dynamic in our relationship that I just did not believe I was good enough. So he said, okay, I understand. I'll get it to the one who
I don't credit it for me to I just have faith to receive. And literally, I think I am a product of watching my parents. I think that's the legacy piece that you're talking about. And they had just gotten saved. It's not like they didn't grow up in the church. They went to Africa maybe 5 years after being saved. It wasn't necessarily the most healthy thing to do, but they just took him at his word, and it came through obedience too.
That's so weird. I'm like having this epiphany as you're talking, because you said a timeline of when you guys went to Africa. I'm like, that's so weird. In 1980, about 5 years after my parents got saved, we went to Mexico as missionaries and had to live like that. And then we were there for 2 years on church support. But when we came back to the States, we lost our church support. But Dad had given up. You know, he was the most successful in his family, and was a fire chief, or fire captain, in the Omaha Fire Department, and had given that up to go on the mission field. Anyways, and just watching that journey, and actually for him, life got so hard that he literally walked away from his faith. But we just saw the same timeline that you're over in Africa living these things, we're in Mexico living these things, and now we're here. But
And I do think that's an important distinction, because sometimes in our zeal, we do it without knowledge. And the ramifications of that, now we begin to put on God what we don't understand.
100%.
That's good, because then we'll see people, well, I'm just going to go on the global work mission field because God's going to provide everything. Well, if he didn't ask you to do it,
or if there's not the right time,
Right.
or you have not made the right connections, or you have not thought through with a clear plan, unless he told you very specifically to go.
Right.
I just think there's a number of things that we put on God that he's not told us.
Yeah.
And then we blame God when it wasn't his fault.
Yeah. And for mine, I would, you actually hinted at it. It was, my parents were first generation Christians and had come from, my dad especially, really, really, really rough background, and didn't have the safety to work through all of that stuff. And now you're on the mission field living in complete poverty. You never know if you're going to have water that day, and you're stressed about, great, now I'm just coming right back into the poverty that I was trying so hard to get out of, all in the name of Jesus.
Right.
And, people aren't getting saved moment by moment when you're on the mission field. There's a lot of just life in between these moments, And I think that zeal, you're exactly right, of we have to have wisdom too. So talk about that a little bit too, of how you'll say that you didn't know what you didn't know about money. You didn't understand money. So then as you're learning things, how do you figure out how to walk that out and yet, not make an investment that then, well, shoot, we don't have money for groceries, but I invested it all this week, whatever,
right.
So how do you figure that out if this is new to you?
I think when I had lost 2 jobs within a span of about 3 or 4 years, and it really, I'm high economic, high numeric, and I began to see not the devastation, but it was very tight times. I can remember looking at our bank account going, we have less than $100, and I don't know what we're going to do, and we have bills, and I'm out of work, and I just hated it so much, and I began to take on a lot of blame. And so by the time God orchestrated for us to come to Omaha, we had to get on a budget. And then, we had the pay cut.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we're going to survive if we don't eat.
Right.
Well, that's not a great way to live, but that wasn't true. That was my lack of understanding of budget. So then we get on a budget and there's margin.
Yeah.
And then, like the first 4 years here at the church, we do a matching percentage for 403B. And
For the average person
here,
right?
you have to work full time.
Right.
And so then, we didn't do it for the first 4 years, just because we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford to invest.
Yes,
afford it.
right.
And again, I would go, gosh, you lost 4 years, we're talking very small amounts of money here.
Right.
But again, so we had to create margin, we had to budget, and then the side jobs came and all of that kind of stuff. But it was more about becoming knowledgeable of God's word and the opportunities that were in front of us. And as we did that, the better we got at our jobs, the more opportunity that came, the better we budgeted, the more margin we had.
The more opportunity to sow.
More opportunities to sow. And that's the crazy thing. When we tell people we sowed, We didn't have much, but we would sow.
Meaning you would give.
Yes.
You're giving into a person's life, into a ministry, into something. Some people might not know what that means.
So very specifically, I remember there was a week that her dad had 4 or 5 different pastors come in and speak, which leads us to a story. And we had $500, and this is when the kids were little. We still were not living on much, but I felt really inclined that we're supposed to invest. In our season of need, we invest. And that investment was going to go to pastors who were coming in. And I asked Carissa, always ask, and she said, okay, I agree. And so we did that. And there was this man that we blessed, and he was from England. And he thanked us, and then he said, hey, you need to get this book, and it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. Okay? And The Richest Man in Babylon is basically a allegory or a tale about how you learn how to invest, become a business owner, stuff like that. Well, after we had lunch, he calls us in. He says, I have a word for you. Like, I have chill bumps right now. And I have this word for you. And her dad, her mom, and this man come into the office. Well, the Lord had been talking to me for years. Again, I don't know much, but there's something stirring in my heart. I wanted to be an intermediary in God's kingdom to be able to give money away. Mm-hmm. And I even printed something off and put it in this. We had this little chest. Every time God would do something, we would mark it, or we would as a reminder. And he sat down and he said, millions of dollars will flow into the kingdom of God through your hands. And we both sat there and we went, we knew it. This was something that was already in our heart. We don't know how. And her parents are freaking out. And we're just going,
amen.
And we're just going, yes.
Even though we had
nothing.
Yeah.
And to over the course of time, I don't believe that money comes through my bank account necessarily. I just think it's in the kingdom of God, thinking that way, teaching kingdom builders, but also being very generous and creating a generous church. And so I don't know how it's all going to play out, but it was so impactful, but it was so confirming that in the little we're giving, one day it's going to impact the kingdom in a much bigger ways. And we're beginning to see some of that now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I just find myself thinking of just the average person and where we're at, and coming to know Jesus, even maybe coming to our church or whatever, just learning who Jesus is, hearing messages about God and sowing things and reaping things and God's blessing and learning how to be a good steward. But you also talked about too in there's time, even just thinking about that prophetic word, there's time of seeing things happen and learning and gaining wisdom, because we'll see just in our human nature, when we get to desperate situations, we often make rash, desperate decisions. Mm-hmm. And how did you guys learn, and also how do we teach people how to slow down and to make wise decisions, especially when they don't even know what a wise decision might be?
Well, Carissa probably had a little more background, when she was raised in a home that was Christian and then committed, mm-hmm. and maybe not perfect and financially in all ways, but they were very generous. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was more about, I had to become aware of what the Word of God said. Mm-hmm. So the tithing component was first. Mm-hmm. We never, ever budged on that. That was something we both believed in. It was something that we saw in Scripture.
I was raised, even if I got a gift or blessed from someone, mm-hmm. it was just instinctive and automatic. Mm-hmm. And I didn't always like it. As a kid, you're like, I got $1 from that 10.
Right.
but it becomes a part of who you are.
Yep. And then, but the other component was we would see return on our giving. We would see somehow, some way God would give us these little moments. I'll give you one that's really, really practical I was thinking about. So we were helping feed the homeless. And
Here? Oh, the sandwich.
yep. And so that was another one. But yeah, no, it was the spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Yep. And the kids were with us.
Yeah.
And so she was bringing home Joni's spaghetti. Oh, Joni's spaghetti.
It's the best.
And so when she called me and we had service on a Saturday night, and she said, Jason, I gave away your spaghetti. And I'm like, oh. But what happened is the kids were in the car, and they passed a homeless person.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, Mom, we got to turn around. We got to go give our food to the
here's
homeless
the thing.
person.
I'm very stingy. Like, I'm not this, just give it all away. I want it all. But God and I have to wrestle stuff out. And maybe that's why the Lord knows when I do receive that it's like,
this is for real.
It's like, this is for real, because I know that girl's heart.
Yeah.
It's still in process.
Yes.
So for me to even want to give my food away, it like, that hurts. It doesn't hurt him, but it hurts me. So when the kids added it, because it was dinner that night, and that's my love language.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't have to cook. And so when they were just like, Mom, you have to, I went, okay, we're doing this. And the Lord knew
Yep.
right here.
So gave away the food, and the next day somebody walks up to me and said, I just want to thank you for investing in my daughter. And it was a gift card for $30 to a food place. And it's all of these little things. But see, we were in the game. We were part of God's kingdom. We had an expectation. We don't know when God is going to do what. We just believe that we're part of it. You're going to take care of us through the tithe, but you're going to bless us in all these different ways. And we would see it over and over. Little things. You know, sometimes it wasn't necessarily the finance, like dollars. It would be an opportunity. Somebody paid for us to go on vacation for a weekend somewhere. And we just saw this over and over. And so the thing in you grows.
And I'll add
The faith in you.
We did this before we were pastors.
Yes.
So like we lived lives, you know what I mean? Like if you're on stage and you get to share that, it's one thing for people to want to bless a pastor, that's kind of normal. But we did this way before, like behind the scenes.
That's really important, because people will say that, oh, those kind of things happen to you because you're in ministry. No, they just get a chance to share about them publicly.
Exactly.
Because God has them in that position. But no, this happens to people who are not pastors, who are not in full-time ministry. And we would have plenty of people who could tell stories like that. And even just thinking about, there's times in life where financially God gives us creativity that says, this could be a moneymaker for you. So do this, and you could sell that, and you can make money to help supply for your family. Then there's other times where God says, make this and go be a blessing. Go give this to somebody who needs it, you know? And it's listening and trusting that he sees it and he provides out of our obedience, and not just. There is a tendency, I think, sometimes also to just become desperate and then make very rash decisions. Maybe I already said this, but the rash decisions, I think, is what's heavy on my heart right now, just because I'm hearing it around me, and learning what the Word of God says, and learning, if I learn what it says, then I have to choose faith to go, okay, this is what he says. So God, in the meantime, when it looks like I have nothing, when it looks like I'm not going to make it, your word says I will. Your word says you will provide. Your word says I'm your child, you're my father, all the things. And what do I need to be doing now?
So the scripture verse, you know, when Paul talks about, you know, that he was called to a sphere, and those people within that sphere is who he ministered to, I really honestly believe part of our responsibility is to be faithful to the place we're called, to the people we're having our lives, to the responsibility of that sphere, if you will, your job, how you work, how dedicated you are to bring everything you are to that moment. And I really do believe instead of constantly pursuing things outside of you over there, you give the best that you have where you are, and you're faithful, and God enlarges that sphere. And it takes time. That's the thing. I think commitment and consistency over time are the way that God preps you to be able to handle more. I've seen people who get opportunities their character can't sustain, or their knowledge base can't sustain. And so all of a sudden, they're not ready for the opportunity when it comes, and it crushes them, either in their character or in their skill. And so the more you're faithful, but it was over time, but also we had an expectation that God was going to bless us in some way, whether it be work, or whether it was going to be a blessing from somebody else, or it was just an opportunity that God invited us into. We just had this belief that God was going to show up in some way. And there were seasons of drought, if you will, the seasons of winter.
And we were still tithing. We were still giving what we could. We were still blessing people, if you want to call it a blessing. But it cost us something. Maybe it was $5 or $10, but we would get it back.
But I'm just going to tell people, but we got to a place where we said every year we're going to give at least $1,000. We're going to give $1,000 seed to somebody.
I did think he was crazy for that one.
But for us, it was the highest multiple in the Bible.
Yeah.
And it was the place, again, that we're going, God, we believe your word. And we wanted to be people who were generous. But then we'd have these stories that, God did something miraculous with it, or it was so on time, and then we'd see it return.
I have a question. So what do you say to the person who, I think I'm tracking with what Tana is saying and asking, what do you say to the person who they're driven by, their motivation is, well, God's just going to bless me?
Well, so here's the thing. We got our house in order.
So they don't spend wisely. They don't.
Well, that's part of the problem.
Okay.
To me. You're supposed to be a good steward. As generous as you are, you need to know your margin, your budget, your family, your needs.
Okay.
You need to make sure you prioritize first your family. I would say equal to that is with God, and then the offerings come later.
Okay.
There's no
So
place.
you're not taking from like your kids eating
No.
to just go randomly bless people,
No.
every person that you run into on the way home, which in
but
Omaha is a lot.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think most people have margin. I just think they don't have faith.
Well,
Okay.
Or they haven't learned the principle of sowing.
practical structure too, of like when you said we make these assumptions either that we have more money or less money than we actually have, because we don't want to have the self-discipline to write it down and make the budget and see like, okay, my house or apartment costs this, my car costs this, my da-da-da costs this, and then before you know it, you're like, holy smokes, that's $317 more.
I just had a conversation this Sunday with a young man living by himself, got a new car. He's wanting God to provide for him. And I went, can I ask you a question? Why don't you get a roommate? And why don't you see what you can do with your car? And let's solve some of these things. You can pray for more, but usually we live up to more if we haven't learned how to budget.
Right.
That's good. I think too, at least a pattern for us, and I'm trying to think practically, is that we didn't live above our means. So our house, the neighborhoods, I mean, what we were going to pay on a monthly basis, there were people who chose to pay a lot more than we did.
Sure.
And that's to your credit. We all know it was not to mine. Because I would take us to houses that he was like, yeah, no. So thank you for that. But again, whether it's the car, the house, clothes, whatever it is, there's choices that are being made to not spend this certain amount so that we can give this amount.
And listen, I was a tightwad. That was the reason. I also, for me, it was wisdom to go, I don't want to be house poor and constantly in tension because I can't afford anything else. And being in ministry, you're capped.
Yeah.
You're just not going to make unless you have extra things. So, it wasn't like I would love to live in a better house, but eventually I just went, we don't need
Right.
necessarily a better house. We can live where we are. So I just, here's the thing, if you're listening and some of this stuff doesn't land, I just want you to know there is a kingdom that God operates in, that your faithfulness to him in tithing and your generosity in sowing into people. I don't sow into cancer research. If we give, we have no expectation of return for that, right? Or if there's some kind of other need, it's more, we know somebody in the church, we know there's some kind of spiritual thing, and we go, God, we're sowing into your kingdom with this. We're just generous, maybe cancer research or St. Jude's or something.
Yeah.
But when it comes to spiritual things, I expect a return on that. And I go, but it's not me demanding. It's faith that goes, I sow seed. There's a need here, God. We want to be able to do this. But part of me also goes, I know somehow you're going to get it back, and I'm going to give it away again.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
So good.
So you're not just throwing money around.
And I go, Lord, you remember that seed we sowed? And just for me, I keep it on my radar because I go, so I want to sow in every season. That's what 2 Corinthians talks about. For every need, every situation, be generous on every occasion. I want to get there. I give myself chill bumps, but it really is this thing. And I feel like if he can trust you with it, he'll get it to you in order to give it to somebody else.
It's really true. You made the comment on Sunday that we have to remember what we want in the future, where we want our family to be, and what God has called us to do, and what he says about the sowing and reaping, and even addressing how money can be an idol and making sure it's not. And you asked a few questions, which I really love, of what drives me with money? Why do I think this way? Why do I act this way? Why do I spend this way? Why do I save this way? And I think no matter where we are in our journey, those are questions we have to continue to ask ourselves. We said it jokingly when Pastor Isaiah was here last week of there's a phrase in our culture of like keeping up with the Joneses and like who the heck are the Joneses, but we live our lives trying to keep up with these people and compare and even how we teach our kids of, well, yep, so-and-so, they might have this or do that or go on those trips or do that. But we, first and foremost, we start out by tithing. And that right there is a different priority financially than what those who don't know Jesus might have. So that shifts things a little bit. But we also know that what we invest into the kingdom, God does something with it in people's lives. And we are only who we are today because people invested into us and helped us to know this God that we now serve. And that's our priority. And so we're going to have to look at things differently and be able to then, as you were talking about, as you've learned even financial principles. So we learn the spiritual biblical principles, then we learn the financial principles of just how money works in our world. Then we can pass that on to our kids, and they start that much more ahead than we did because we're teaching them already at a young age how to not go into debt, how to be willing to work hard sometimes when you're exhausted and, yep, you need to pick up a third shift on that job or this job or whatever, how to say no. Yeah, you really like those Jordans, but nope. Yeah. Not today. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm going to give you another story really quickly. I know
we're good.
So in our first years of being a young adult pastor, there was a young woman here that was in medical school, and we sewed into her. There was a test that she needed some financial help for. We sewed into her. 12 years later, she would do a procedure on my daughter.
So cool.
You entrust your daughter to the best, and to see the full circle just is so crazy that like God, you never run out of time with God. Like he doesn't forget. You don't know when the seed's going to come to pass. It just, there's a time for it. There's a time for every seed to bear fruit. You just don't know when it's going to be.
Yeah. I'm gonna sorry, I keep making my shoes. You mentioned something earlier, and I'm gonna kind of what we said earlier about what I love about this podcast. I'm gonna call you on it. There have been some times in the last years or so that we have preached maybe differently than what I've been taught my whole life. So it came up today. It's come up as something important. It's tithing. We all believe in tithing. We all actively tithe, and we believe that it is actually part of God's kingdom blessing to us, is that just initial submission of tithing. But lately, I feel like what I'm hearing is we say that tithing is no longer a mandate and you can tithe if you want to or whatever. I don't know what to say to that. I'm conflicted with that Old Testament principle, but actually, is it fulfilled in the New Testament where he actually is like, tithing is like the baseline. I'm telling you now, give, and it shall be given.
Raising it up.
I'm raising the bar.
Yeah.
Where people are hearing preaching that says, oh, tithing is an Old Testament thing, therefore I no longer need to tithe. I can just give when I feel like giving.
So what was the law? The law was an instruction for people to begin to discover what God is like.
Okay.
So with it in some ways, it was like a tax. And it wasn't a tax, but I feel like the way we preach it is a tax. Sometimes it's a law. No, you have to do this. Okay. That's not the spirit of the New Testament. The spirit of the New Testament is, I love you. I'm thankful for you. I'm going to freely give to you out of response. And if 10% is, I believe it is a principle and a spiritual law, but I want to do it with the right motive. But in the New Testament, the expectation was more. Because of community need, because they were no longer part of the Jewish community, that the church became the place where a lot of needs were met. There was the expectation of giving a lot more to widows and need. And so if we're just going to look by the letter of the law, then it's 10% and it's a tax. But for me, it was, no, I do this because I love you. I trust you. And you'll meet my need. So you'd bring that Old Testament principle in, but the heart behind it is, this is relationship. I trust you. I'm in the game, Lord.
Which is actually really interesting because I can hear people who will say, I tithe, so I don't need to give to that. I don't need to give to kingdom builders. I don't need to whatever. I don't need to help so-and-so. When actually they're taking the flip side of that same legalistic, I'm just going to follow the letter of the law. Don't tell me to give anything more. And Jesus is actually saying, no, it's all of it. It's
both.
That's why the heart is so important to me, because if they go, I'm in it, and I trust the Lord with my 10%, I'm okay.
Yeah.
For me, it was the other things where we saw God takes care of our needs with the tithe, but the other things is where we saw the extra stuff.
And I would say at the end of the day, the problem is not finances. For those people struggling with that, I think at the end of the day, the problem is our humanity does not want to be told what to do. So we don't like things like, that's why we make it an Old Testament versus New Testament, because we're not under that. Well, I'm pretty sure people in general that struggle with that's not the only place they may struggle with. I think if you go to the root is, we don't want to be told what to do.
I would agree with you. I think some people are in that place. I think a lot of people are in that place. Then I can also recognize that there are people who we're not even making ends meet. I can't seem to get a job that makes enough that I can even support my family. I can't, there's no consistency, or I got laid off, or, things like that. And then how do you encourage them? What's the next step? Again, I'm going to go back to financial peace because it's so practical for me. And because I wanted to do things right, but I also needed kind of somebody to put the lines on the field, as you would say. I needed somebody to do that for me, and it needed to not be my husband.
Yeah, I get that.
You know what I mean? Because then I'm going to be mad at him. And I would actually say that when we were in our first journey of financial peace, I would say, Dave Ramsey's the author of Financial Peace, if you don't know that, listeners. And I would say Dave Ramsey's name is becoming a swear word to me. Like, if I have to follow one more Dave Ramsey principle, if you tell me one more time I only have so much money as what's in my envelope, the grocery envelope, I'm going to lose my ever-loving mind. But I was mad at Dave Ramsey then, theoretically, and not Nate, because I knew where I wanted to go, and I knew the principles of God, and I knew the financial principles that Dave Ramsey was teaching us. He's not God. He's not perfect. And actually part of his story is how imperfect he really is. But learning those, those boundaries were then put on me so that we could be set free, so that we didn't have to live in debt, so that we could be creative, save our money, not, our allowance envelope back in the day when we first started was we each got $26 for the month.
It's not much.
And that would be if I wanted to go to a coffee with a friend,
Right.
if I wanted to buy a shirt, if I wanted to get my nails done, which I didn't, but those kind of things. It was like $26 ain't gonna get you some nails, but it was like, that's how we started. And I think there would have been certain phases in life where $26 would have been extravagant, if we were tracking it then. But just, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I agree.
There has to be that point where I get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And my personality, God, I believe you for my salvation, yet I keep holding back on these other things, and I don't believe that you truly know what you're talking about. But you can save me? That doesn't make any sense.
That's good.
And when I wrestled that out and was like, okay, then God, I tested you at your word of whether you can save me, and I believe that you have changed my life and you are saving me, and I have eternity with you. Therefore, I'm going to put you at your word with my finances. We're going to tithe. We're going to live on a budget. We're going to give every time you tell us to give. We'll clear it with each other, and then we're going to do it. And I was telling PJ this morning, we get the butterflies in our stomach, oh no.
Oh, it's a nauseating feeling.
It is.
For some of us.
Yes, it is. For a long time it was of
Yeah.
Then you start to watch God. And again, it doesn't mean that, I gave this money and suddenly this money showed up in my mailbox. No, it was, I got offered an extra house to clean that week and was
or my shoes lasted longer than they should have. That's something my dad used to say. My suits last longer than a lot of people's. He just knew the Lord would take care of him.
Yes.
But I know when we were in that situation, I think this gives a little bit of an example. I think where people become rule driven, I think in those seasons where it really is tough, I would say there's times I would find 50 cents laying around in the couch, in the car, and I would just be like, I'm going to give you 50 cents. It wasn't 10% of my income. Right. I literally was just
the widow's
giving.
mite.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think you can start there if you get any kind of government assistance, which we did in seasons. It's like we would just take a little portion, or I would want to do it for myself and not attach to, my husband. And the Lord would provide an opportunity. Again, chiropractor, got to work there. Shout out Dr. Nick.
Yep.
Just different things, babysitting, opportunities. And it was and I would go, that's because I gave that 25 cents that I found, at the bottom of a drawer. But I would just say, thank you, God, for that. Yeah. And it wasn't like, it's not really 10%. That's where I think the law, but you give what you have. That's my point.
There's one story I want to tell, and then we'll be done because I know we're running late. Yeah. So when I first moved here, God would give me dreams. And there was one very interesting dream. So in the dream, I'm having this conversation because I'm on this journey with the Lord. Honestly, I'm beginning to see God do things, and I'm calling somebody from home, and I'm driving, and I'm telling them all the things that God is doing. So I started in this small town, and then moved out onto a freeway, and I'm going down the freeway, and I miss this turn, and I go, I don't know what the next thing is, and the next stop was Omaha. And literally, the road literally turned into Omaha. All right. So the next scene is I'm standing at a toll booth, and I'm going, well, how much is it? How much is the cost? And he said, can't you read? It's like 23 cents. And I throw in a little bit of change. And he starts handing me hundreds and thousands of dollars. And he said, go spend, spend, spend. And the principle is this: if you'll just give God what it costs, a little bit of change, the return is so much more than we can expect. And so if you're in that season where you're stuck, I only have a little bit, I've been down this road, I'm tired, look for opportunities, trust God's faithfulness, continue to be generous, but expect God to meet you, and he's going to give you opportunities. I've seen it. We've lived it. We're still generous, and there's bigger dreams in our heart, but it's only a season.
I agree. It really reminds me of just speaking to that poverty mindset of it's hard to think of giving anything when I'm lacking. And just even thinking of seasons of when my kids would grow out of their clothes, I could sell them. I could have a garage sale and sell them, or I could give them away to somebody. And I remembered thinking about it in my house one day of like, do I want to have a garage sale? Whatever. Not to say there weren't seasons where I did have a garage sale. It's totally appropriate.
Yeah.
Or now we would do Facebook Marketplace. But in that season, in that certain moment, God all of a sudden reminded me when I had my daughter and I was a single mom. There was a family in this church who had a little girl that was a year older. So seasonally, with children, clothing has to match up seasonally too with their age. And she would and they dressed like she had these fancy Christmas dresses. And every year, Kirsten for years would wear these fancy Christmas dresses and Easter dresses, and then just the everyday clothes that I would never have been able to afford to get her. But this woman had given them to me. So I remembered that and realized, oh, yep, the little pittance I could get off the garage sale is nothing versus giving. And it had to shift my mindset of, I'm giving what I have to somebody else who needs it, knowing that God always will provide. So even if I don't have tangible money to put in the offering bucket or to give to somebody, my heart posture, because of what God is doing in me, has to shift to finding ways that I can still bless somebody else who it has a need just like I do, or who has a bigger need than I do. And just helping us to think broader and when things get really hard, reflect on what you've seen God do. And if you feel like God hasn't done anything in your life, it's not true, but I know sometimes it feels that way. Then think about the people around you. And okay, God, I just listened to PJ and Carissa talk about what you've done. Then I'm going to believe on what you've done for them and see if you
100%.
We used to do that.
Yeah, we used to do that a lot. If you did it for them, okay.
Yeah, I'm not any different.
Yeah.
All right. I want to speak to those who do have for just a minute.
Yeah.
I'm challenging you to give more. So what I mean is, this is not just emotional and it's not just zeal. I want you to use some wisdom, but I want you to begin to stretch faith and go, God, I want to challenge myself, but I also want you to show me what you can do in generosity. And do it in seasons, break it up how you want, but I want you to begin to go, God, I'm asking you to meet me in this. I want to be generous, and I also want to see your generosity too. And so begin to engage God that way, because I think sometimes we speak to those in need, but those who have, more will be given if you're generous, because learning stewardship. And so challenge yourself.
You started the message with, I want you to have God stories. I want you to discover God's faithfulness. I want you to have history with God in giving. I want you to know that consistency over time is the way that God works. And so for those who are even living in blessing, having God stories and having history and getting to
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
It's not theoretical anymore. No. But I think the challenge is always, there's this need, and what am I going to do? And some people, it's a $100,000, I don't know what it was, or a $5, and it's still the same tension.
It is.
Yeah, same. I've got a need.
Yeah.
I want to sow. God, what do you want me to do?
We've been married for 28 years. The tension of God, what are we supposed to do, is always there. But it gets easier and easier to go, like what you guys have said, of like, God, if I'm feeling this, then I know it's you. And I say that all the time of like, even if this is not you, I can't obey you. I can't give you.
It's that upside down kingdom.
Yes,
the more you give.
Yeah, you're so kind of like, well, actually, that wasn't me telling you to do that. But because you did, I will bless you because I know that I can get it
Yeah.
through you to bless others. So anyways, guys, be encouraged, okay? No matter where you're at financially. We could go on for hours of stories and stories about what God has done in our lives, in our parents' lives, now watching our children grow up and watching them figure it out and flesh it out, what it looks like. Even in your darkest days where it feels like I don't have a crumb to feed my kids, God is faithful and he will meet you. So if you need somebody to talk to, let us know.
Yes,
I think
please.
that's one of the biggest responses right now is you need to get into life with somebody who they don't need to be wealthy. They need to be financially wise and submitted to the kingdom.
Right.
That's who you want to follow, and then be very authentically transparent. Like, this is the disaster of a mess I'm in. How can you help me? And then listen to them and do what they say. Because they're going to lead you the way that God led them. And financial peace, of course, and Thrive In. What a great opportunity that was to have Thrive In here. So be encouraged. Have a wonderful week, and we'll chat again next time. Thanks again for joining us today. We would love for you to tell others about the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it too, because this will help others find out about it. If you missed it before, we love to hear from you. So if you have any stories to tell about how the message impacted you, or maybe you have a question or comment, make sure you email us at podcast@goodnews.church. Y'all, this is my favorite day of the week. So go give away what you just learned, and we'll chat again next time.